Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Smyers again, and I'm a practicing real estate agent in Southwest Virginia. And I have my website, virginialandowner.com, and this YouTube site where I offer information that might be helpful to people buying and selling property. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about buying a building lot. A lot of people, they have some money saved up and they really don't want to buy a standard type of home or something, so they decide that they're going to have a home built for themselves. Well, obviously, the first thing you need a place to have your home built, and of course, people go looking for building lots. Now, typically, what happens in a suburb, you drive around a large city in the outskirts, you'll start seeing these big developments, and someone had a big plan. They came in, they said, we're going to put the septic here, and this and that, and this kind of access, and all that stuff. And a lot of times, they even have the same kind of landscaping, and then they have I went to a place out in Ohio, and every house was beige. There's a whole lot of beige houses. So those are the kind of building lots that you might get offered. But typically in those kind of neighborhoods, you can say, okay, I want my house on this lot, and maybe it's near a golf course or something. And then the building company will say, well, here's the 5 or 6 models that we are allowed to have on this lot, and pick one, and we'll customize it inside for you. So anyway, that's one kind of building lot. And those kind of building lots, they've been prepped. A builder went in there and they bought a huge piece of land, for example. Maybe they bought 100 acres and they're going to put a bunch of houses there. Now they may have paid, let's say they paid $3,000 an acre for 100 acres, and they got $300,000 piece of land or something. And then, well, they got a whole lot of work to do and all kinds of permits and everything to get that land ready for a real development. Oh, it's a huge thing. And then sometimes they even have to have environmental studies and things like that. So they put a whole lot of money into it, and then it comes down to they have these 10 or 12 lots or whatever. And 100 acres, they'll probably put 50 lots or something. And that's a lot of homes. So that's the kind of lot that you'll get, and it'll be all prepped and everything. It says, okay, it's all ready. There's septic, there's electricity, everything's good, there's a driveway ready, and boom, 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 build a house. Well, a lot of people don't really like that, and there's a trend to go out in the countryside where there's a whole lot more land and much more interesting properties to build on. But then, I specialize in land and real estate and property in the rural areas because I live in a rural Virginia. You get into a whole different situation out here because there are some developments typical of the kind that I was describing in the suburbs, but they're a lot smaller. Someone might, a farmer sells off some acres and make a little money, and then someone says, okay, I'll put 10 houses there, or maybe someone even buys a smaller portion. Now, the problem that we get out here is that the land started off long, long ago as big, big parcels. The king or whoever gave somebody 1,000 acres. I know of one estate that was 8,000 acres in historical times. That's a huge amount of land. And now it's down to 800. But the thing is that farmers are reluctant to cut up a piece of land into small pieces. You see, if you want to have a productive piece of land, it's going to have some soil and maybe some place to grow some hay and maybe a pond or a stream or something. So it's not just going to be a little tiny piece of land. So it's harder and harder to find small chunks of property, 1 acre, 2 acre, 3 acres, way out in the countryside. So they're in demand. And if you do find a piece like that you can buy, say, for 1 to 5 acres, well, think seriously about getting it because there aren't that many of the small pieces. Now, there are a lot of small towns in rural Virginia, and there used to be a lot of railroads. That's the way it was long ago. There were railroads. So every railroad had to have a lot of have things that whatever the support of the railroad, the people who worked on the railroad, and then maybe there was a mill or something like that, or a farm or a dairy farm, and they had to bring the railroad close. So in those kind of towns, you see small towns, and you'll see that 1 acre, 2 acre small zoning. And in one town I know nearby, there's a whole area that it was just apparently was just, they needed some workers and they needed some cheap housing, so they built a whole bunch of little small lots that were mobile homes now, and some of them are really run down, and it's like, oh, boy, that was a bad way to divide up the land. But that's what happens. Now, the same town, you go down another few blocks, you'll see a totally different kind of house on a typical 1 acre lot. So there's a lot of mix out here in the countryside. Now, if you want to build from scratch on a home on a small lot, let's say you find one. If it's totally raw land, you're going to be paying probably $3,000 or so an acre to up, could be more, $5,000 to an acre, depending on a lot of different factors and so on. But if it's near a road where there's already homes, it doesn't have to be right next to it, but if there's a home somewhere along the line, there's an electric line that goes there, and it's been there for a long time, so that's a good thing to have. So you don't have to be so far out in the boonies that you got to hook up the electric. That's going to cost some money. So there are lots like that, but they may be a very mixed, because it could be if some farmer long ago, one of their kids had said, okay, son or daughter, I'll cut off this 10 acres for you, and you can build your house over there. And so little by little, land gets chopped up in different ways. And looking for a piece out there, you sometimes need a scout like myself. So I drive around and I look at the tax maps online, and I look at the terrain, and I have maps and everything. It's part of my work. And I also have a small plane, and I do aerial photography. So I see the terrain and what it's related to, because you can find a really great piece of land to live on, but it might be in a way out in a tiny dirt road somewhere that it's not going to be possible to put a solar there, or you won't even be able to get the electric there. So that's a problem. So when you go out and you look on Zillow, you might see these land things, and you see a satellite picture, and it may not even be a very good picture, and it looks from directly overhead, and it's not like you can't see important features just from a satellite photo. So sometimes it really helps to have a scout or someone in the neighborhood, maybe a relative or friend, say, hey, could you go check out this place for me and see if it's something I want to buy, if you're coming from out of town. So one way to think about that is to look on the tax maps and see where you can find there might be some parcels. Another important thing to do is, if you find a piece of land that you might like to buy and happens to be for sale, be sure you check what's around there. It could be a junkyard, or it could be a fire department house where the siren goes off every time there's a fire. There's a lot of things that you don't want have right near you when you have your own property. You see, so like a busy road is something you don't want. And now some people don't like cows. I mean, honestly, frankly, if you live next to a cow field, that's really great, because nobody's going to build there, and the cows don't care about your privacy or anything. So that's fine. But on the other hand, cows can smell and the wind goes the right way, depending on how many there are and where they're kept. So again, think about what's around you. One thing that you can get around you in the countryside is you can get, let's say you have a small lot of land, and you find one that has road access and everything, and then behind you an absentee owner owns 100 acres, and you never see this guy. I mean, for all practical purposes, nobody's ever going to build there, and you have that insulation, but you don't have to pay the taxes on that land. Someone else is paying it for you. So I talked about dividing land, another segment here. But you can divide up land, but it gets complicated, and you want to go into it with a plan. Now again, small lots. I'm talking about mostly the lots out in the countryside where they're not prepared lots. Now there are, again, small towns in the area, and they're slowly expanding, like Roanoke and Lexington, and you get toward the edges of town, and you start seeing, well, somebody did finally sell 20 acres of that farmland and so on. And then I hate what they build there. They build these McMansions, and it's never going to be the same. I like to see the real beautiful land, and if people build houses, I like to see some natural trees and big ones. I don't like that they bulldoze everything, and you don't want that. So that's another thing to look for. If you want to build and have a little bit of privacy, look for the trend that, where is it going to be in 20 years? In 5 years after you find your dream place, are they going to build like a a whole bunch of condos right next to you. So think about the zoning. I talked about that in another of these segments. So keep in mind that there's a lot of factors when you buy land, and you want to check it out on what's around you, and things like the taxes and so on. So I try to make these videos pretty short, so they're easy to get and not bore you. So my email address and my phone number is on here, and my website is virginialandowner.com, and this YouTube segment. So thanks again for listening, and please like and share, and come back and see some of the more content that I'll be keep making in the future. So thanks.